You got
Wow, wow, wow. Lower less. Love it, love it. That just sort of takes off. It's slide heaven. It's overdriven, fuzzy sort of guitar sound. Um, is it true when you play your slide? I did hear somebody say you dig into the frets or something so you can get a perfect tuning. Is that right? You sort of push
I
down a bit.
I don't do it all the time, but I do it. I do it. So what happened was is a few years back. Actually, it's been a while now. It's so weird when you think, oh, that was just last year, but it was actually like 10 years ago. But I was always a fan of Derek Trucks. And I remember I heard Derek Trucks early on because I was friends with Jimmy Herring and O'Teal Burbridge from the Aquarium Rescue Unit back then. And then, of course, O'Teal would end up being in the Allman Brothers, as would Jimmy at one point. But I also recorded down at Johnny Sandlin's studio. And Johnny Sandlin was actually in the band Hourglass with Greg and Dwayne Allman.
Wow.
But he went on to, he like mastered live at Fillmore, and he produced the Brothers and Sisters record, and Greg Allman laid back. And so we recorded down at Johnny's place. And while we were down there, he gave me a cassette copy of this first record of Derek Trucks. And so I heard him very early on, and I was like, well, Jesus, this is taking the Dwayne Allman thing to a whole nother level. And right around the same time I got hip to the Sacred Steel stuff, predating when Robert Randolph came out, but that school of playing in gospel churches with like a lap steel, or and doing this crazy, very vocal, slidey type of stuff. And so it was one of those things. I always played slide, but it was just kind of one of the things in my trick. I wasn't a slide guy. You know what I mean? Just like those are guys who are like, oh, he's the slide guy. It's like slide was one of the things I did, right? And so when Derek came along, it's like, yeah, he's the slide guy, does this crazy stuff. As Sonny Landreth is another one. And of course, before that was Ry Cooder, and these guys are, you think of as slide guys, right? So at one point I was listening to this Derek Trucks thing, and I was like, how can his intonation be so freaking great? It's just, it doesn't make sense, and my motto is it can't be some kind of divine intervention. If it can be done, then by God, it can be done. And I'm going to figure out what the hell's going on here. So I was figuring out one of those kind of East Indian sounding tunes that he did. I can't remember the name of the song. Sarah, I can't remember. I'm going to mispronounce the name. Anyway, people probably know what I'm talking about. It's the one, he has got two songs that are very kind of East Indian, and it's got the microtones and so on and so forth. And as I'm trying to figure out this thing, and I'm playing in conventional slide, it's just like, God, it's just not precise enough. I don't understand. And so I actually pressed down with the slide on the fingerboard, and I realized, oh, you can hit those notes exact. And then I started figuring out that, you could press down for just a split second and then raise the slide again and just add vibrato like you normally would with conventional slide playing. And then I started realizing that you could put together this whole aspect of doing those faster kind of descending or ascending runs that sound like a gospel vocalist, those little, glissando-y type of things that they do with going up and down. And I realized, I can do all of that when I'm pressing down with the slide. Now, truth be told, once I did the pressing down with the slide and my ear got used to of where those notes were, I didn't need to actually press down anymore because I got the muscle memory going. But there was also a thing that I remember when first time I heard this Sonny Landreth record called Outward Bound. He did this lick on this one tune, and the notes slid by, and like you could hear the frets going by, and I thought it was the coolest sounding thing. I was like, "What is that?" And I realized, well, he's fretting with the slide. So sometimes I'll just do that in particular, where you can hear each fret sliding by. And so yes, it's something that I learned that was kind of a cool little hack, if you will, for figuring out that more contemporary gospel-y East Indian slide that has all these microtones in it. So
sounds like look, question, a really basic question: pinky or ring finger for your slide, or index? I've seen.
I used to use I started off using my ring finger, and then at some point I switched to my pinky because I was playing slide mostly in standard tuning, and I needed my other fingers to make chords and so on and so forth. But then I started getting into more, getting under the roof of more of these, the Derek Trucks world and Sonny Landreth, and I started learning kind of more stuff on slide that was a little more sophisticated. And I just realized that my ring finger was much more able to be controlled in terms of vibrato, even distribution over all the strings. It was easier to keep the slide perpendicular to all the strings, as opposed to my pinky, which would always just kind of be just a little going off horizontally. It was easier to keep the third finger or the ring finger more perpendicular to the strings. It is kind of funny though, because I'll post things, slide things online. And I've got a couple people who just be like, you should really be playing slide with your second finger. And I'll be like, I've done the research. I've done the research on my own personal, preferences for utilizing the slide. And funnily enough, I've come up with the idea that the third finger is the one that works for me. So out there, if there's people listening to this that think that any slide player that doesn't play with their second finger is some kind of a heretic, I invite you to seek help quickly, preferably with a spiritual guru of your choice that might help you exercise your slide demons, which are inhabiting your chakras of choice.
You tell them, Greg. They're not allowed anymore, are they? Not allowed to listen to this anymore. And what do you prefer? Steel, glass? What do you use slide wise?
Glass. I've used steel, but I prefer kind of a Corsedon bottle type of thing. I've used. Currently, I'm using a Jim Dunlap. Before that, I used the Diodario version, the blues bottle. I kind of keep a stash of both of those, and whatever is handy and not broken, I'll use. But in worst case scenario, if I have to use a steel one, I will. I find that it's easier to obviously to make the notes ring in a more compressed, kind of in your face kind of way. Steel or brass works in that regard. They both have a slightly different sound. I find that with glass, you just have a little bit more of a wider dynamic range. So you can really lay into it, or you can play slide. It's just got a little bit more of a thing in terms of character and kind of depths and heights of a dynamic range.
And when you finish the line with your slide, what do you do with it? Are you one of these who got a magnet sort of grip on it and pull it off, or you chuck it away over your shoulder? Or what do you do with it?
I actually, I put them underneath the handle of my amp. I have my amp raised behind me, and so I stash them in the handle of the amp. And so if I take it off, I mean, there's times where I'll just whip it, but I kind of like on the tunes where I play standard tuning slide, and I need to go back to playing other chords and so on and so forth. I'll just take it and just grab it in that and put it in that little handle. But I have just flung them.
That is a top tip. I love it. I'm using that one to handle it. Look, let's go to another one of your tracks now. I'm loving listening to your stuff as well. I've been listening to loads of stuff, but this one really caught my ear. Unrepentant. This was recorded live at Sweetwater. So let's have a listen to this, and then we'll come back and have a chat about it then.